Hi, we're going to do a video on how to develop a female fashion figure and take a swipe as an inspiration and elongate in a couple of places to get to our desired 9 or 8.5 figure length. So what do? We elongate in a couple of places, not everywhere. So one place would be where we're going to elongate is going to be at the neck. Second place, we might slightly elongate at the waistline, just slightly. Most of the elongation will take place at the half level between the knee and ankle. So here is going to be most of our elongation done to achieve 9.5 or 8.5 or 9 heads. So we're going to calculate right now, so it's a little bit more obvious what we're talking about. So this is one head, one size. This is 2 at the breast level. This is 3 at the waist level. This is 4 at the crotch. This is 5. This is 6. This is 7.5. So regular people, actually just people, we have about 7 heads in, as normal human proportions. Not normal, but let's say standard. And what we want to do is we're going to try to stretch the figure to get to that slightly exaggerated fashion figure. And as I said, there are a couple of places where we're going to elongate the most, but we'll be elongating kind of like across the line. So first of all, you want to have a straight line. We touched upon this when we were developing male figures, but not too much. So from the middle of the throat all the way down to the floor, if we draw a line, it will be right at the back of the ankle, and that's how you keep the balance of your figure and the figure standing straight. If you don't have this line, I'm gonna make it with marker so it's a bit more obvious. So this plumb line that goes from the middle of the throat all the way straight at 90 degrees to the back of the ankle, to the floor, and ends there. So that's a 90-degree angle here. If we look at it, 90 degrees, right? That will keep our figure standing straight. Another point you want to consider is that when the figure has one weight leg, meaning you only have majority of your weight distributed on one leg, for fun, you can actually try to stand on one of your leg and look at yourself in the mirror to kind of fully understand how it feels. In that case, what you're going to have shoulder and pelvis opposition, which means if one shoulder is higher, the opposite hip is going to be higher, which is here. So that's kind of, this is high here, this shoulder, and this hip is high here. So what it gives you this, I'm gonna use different color marker to make my point even more obvious. So what it does, especially in female form, we're talking about it because it's kind of crucial in order to draw successful figures. We are going to have this kind of S curve happening here. So it's curving here and curving back here with the leg. So we having this kind of curve. This means like the center of the body here, and then it kind of comes back over here. So what it does, it creates this kind of very flowy, fluid, dynamic movement, which we don't want to lose, because a lot of times when people just trace the figure, one of the problems, they look a little, sometimes they can look a little robotic because people lose that S-curve, but it's something that's very beautiful and you definitely don't want to lose, because that's kind of the essence of what we're trying to communicate with our fashion figure. It's like very dynamic movement. So I'm gonna mark my head size here. Let's assume this is the head size. And then if I just trace the current neck, it's going to be very small. So you can already see why we're going to elongate. But before starting to do this, I'm going to mark my 9 heads. So here I'm gonna do 9 heads, so you can kind of see what we're going to do. So I'm gonna make a straight line, and I can even follow the straight line that I have already started on my figure here. And I'm gonna take the head size as a unit of measurement. So breasts are gonna be at level 2, at head number 2. This is 3, pelvis is 4, this is 5 here, knees are, so here we need to elongate. Knees are going to be around 6, so what it means is we have to elongate slightly this part of the thigh, and then we're continuing down, same measurement. Here is 7, 8, and 9. So the 9 part, so from 8 to 9, is going to be her foot. So we can already actually trace her foot because we know it's going to land here. This is the landing place where we're going to finish the figure and S-curve and all that. So one of the places that you want to elongate the figure is the neck. And the neck elongation is going to be kind of the size of half of the head. So if you measure half of the head and put it here, that's how long we want to draw our neck. And then make sure again to line up your plumb line to the center of the body that we already indicated the plumb line there. So here what I would do is again mark that clavicle, and actually I would kind of trace that center of the body, because that's, we don't want to lose that curve. And we're drawing the rib cage here, and when I'm tracing, I'm trying to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna go over with black pencil so you can see more clearly. I'm tracing her body underneath, and I moved the size of the head a little bit above because that's how I elongated the figure at the moment. And then I'm keeping the waistline. I can move slightly the waistline if I want. And then what you want to do, you want to make it slightly slimmer across the bodies, slightly slimmer in the neckline. So I would make it ever slimmer in the torso, in a waistline, just slightly so it looks proportionate with what we're trying to create here. And I would slim down her legs as well to make her more of a fashion figure. And then here is, because we elongated the neck here, the knee is actually at the level 6 here, at the position of the 6th head, so, or 6th head measurement. So now I'm tracing over this part, and then I'm going to trace her legs, and make sure to keep the hip and shoulder opposition intact. Remember, we talked about it. So if you continue these lines, they will eventually meet. You know, it goes like this. Always one shoulder and the opposite hip are going to be higher. So then here you have the hip box, which is the high hip bone here and the low hip bone here, which is the widest part of the body. And that's going to be, you know, our S curve, that S movement. It goes here and then comes back to the exact location. So I hope you can see it. And then I'm just tracing her arms, and in this case, same thing, I'm just slimming them slightly down, because in the photographs, when we just trace as is, it can look slightly chunkier. Same thing, slightly elongate her fingers. And this would be our fashion figure that we've developed. So it's gonna be her eyes here, you know. What I will do, I will go over and refine it again, but this is going to be our main development. And when you look at your reference photo while you're working on your figure, or you're adding definition, the muscles, you know, the clavicle, her biceps, deltoids muscles here, biceps, and you know, just kind of outlining her breasts, the abdominal muscles just slightly, and the waistline. All those definitions we studied on male figure already, so it would be much easier to develop female figure, because we don't need to accentuate so much of the muscular development or structure, but we still want to know where it is, and we still want to draw very kind of more of athletic, like toned body. Not as much athletic, but let's say like a ballerina or yoga body. And this would be the process, how you stretch the figure, make it 9 heads, and elongate and slim your figure. So if you learn this technique, you can develop and use any poses you want. But your best friend is going to be your reference for illustration, as well as for developing your fashion figure.